Hello, Pathways class. I hope you found yesterday's little assignment interesting. I got a lot of good responses from a bunch of you about what was inside the uh, Elon Musk's cherry red Tesla Roadster. So, what a lot of you mentioned. So, here's what was inside the dummy with the SpaceX spacesuit on, the plaque here that had the 6,000 names engraved of the SpaceX employees, the matchbox on the passenger seat, which was a matchbox of this car with a little dummy inside of it. And some of you also mentioned the disk, the Quartz Disk. So this is kind of like a little storage device, and it's made out of quartz, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what this was made by the Arc Foundation, and the Arc Foundation was inspired by a novel that was written by Asimirov's. I don't know how to say his name exactly. In a story he wrote, it was about exploring space and preserving human history as they travel through space. And if they went through space and went to Mars or went to different planets, would they set that new planet up like Earth? Would you have the same laws? Would you have the same rules? Or should you start a new law system or a new government? And it was a series of books that discussed those ideas of, you're exploring space, how much of the old ideas or normal things we do, holidays and just things that we do, would they transfer to other planets? And if they didn't, would the stories and ways we did things and the culture of Earth, would that go away, or would it have to go away if we were exploring space and living on other places? So the idea was it would probably have to change, but how did you preserve what Earth was like? And the idea of creating this encyclopedia of Earth that had a lot of our culture on it. And so they took that book and put it on this quartz disk, and this had the book on it. So it's sort of preserving a bit of our culture and sending it out into space. Now, the reason they chose quartz is quartz can stand up to even harsher conditions than metal. There's a thing called the Mohs hardness scale, and you may have learned about this in elementary school when we did minerals, and that is how hard it is. If you look at quartz is a 7 on the Mohs hardness scale. It's only 3 spots away from a diamond, which is the hardest thing. A steel is 6.5 on the Mohs hardness scale. Excuse me. So quartz is actually harder than steel. And I've tried this before. I've taken a piece of quartz and piece of steel, and the quartz will scratch the steel, and the steel will not scratch the quartz. So making that out of quartz means it's going to hold up in space even probably better than the car itself. Now, there was one other thing that was in that car that no one picked up on, because it was a little bit of an Easter egg, if you will. On the satellite navigation here were the 2 words, "Don't panic," which seems like just like don't panic, you're going into space, heading to Mars. But it actually was a clue as to something else that's inside the car. Don't panic is the 2 first words in a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right here. It was a book, I think it was 95, and then it was, 95, and then it was made into a movie as well. Kind of bizarre story about someone whose house is about to be demolished, and the bulldozer was coming, and he gets saved at the last minute by his friend, who turns out to be an alien, and he whisks them off into space and saves them, and they go through this adventure all throughout the galaxies, trying to figure out what the meaning of life is, and at one point they are told that the answer is 42. That's the meaning of life, but then they don't know what the question is. So it's a really bizarre story, lots of interesting characters. But this Don't Panic was on there. One, because it's sort of just, it would look obvious, don't panic to the driver, you're going to be fine. But it was a clue that there was a copy of that book inside the glove compartment of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So that was the one thing that was in there that nobody mentioned or didn't come up with. That was inside the payload here. Okay, where are we going from here? I just got an email from Mr. Mahalik that he got an email from the Secretary of Education that school is officially closed. All schools will be closed to the end of the year. So we won't be going back to Crestwood this year, as far as the email that I can see. I just got. All schools will be closed. Let me just pull that. Well, you could take my word for me. Typing. I have a cut, so I can't really type here. Let's see here. School closure update. This morning, I ordered Act 13 of 2020 to close all public schools through the end of the 2019-2020 school year. So that came from the Secretary of Education. So what we have to do is figure out how we proceed from here. I'm ready to go as far goes as the rest of the year. I can pretty much do the rest of this year online without a problem. We have to work out as a school some logistics of making sure everyone's getting on, getting graded, so that we can pass and move on to the next grade. So if any of your friends out there that are not on Google Classroom yet, and they aren't, make sure that they get on to our Pathways class, pass this along to them, this code, because with us not going back to school, work in our Google Classroom for Pathways is going to switch over from voluntary to mandatory, because we have to get you a grade so we can get you moved on. So please pass this code along. We have no school on Friday or Monday because of the Easter spring break. I don't know if you can officially call it Easter. I guess you can. Passover, Easter, spring break. So we will reconvene on Tuesday. All right. Hopefully you all have a great long weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday.